On December 29, 1953, in Bladen Borough, North Carolina, a local woman heard her neighbor's dogs barking. So she went outside to go investigate, and she saw what seemed to be a very large cat-like creature walking off into the darkness. Now this was the first sighting of the beast of Bladen Borough, and about 2 days later the police were called out to a farm owned by a man named Woody Storm. The police were told that something had attacked Woody's dogs, and when the police arrived, they were shocked at what they found. 2 of Woody's dogs were killed by something extremely powerful, and their bodies were completely drained of blood. Then a couple of days later, another report came in from a man who told the police that he saw a dog being attacked by a huge creature, and this creature killed the dog and dragged its corpse into the woods. Now the police were on full alert, and more sightings just kept coming in. Some eyewitnesses said that it looked like a bear. Some said it was a huge cat, kind of like a panther, and some just couldn't identify it as they had no idea what it was, but they all agreed that it was big. Then, on January 2nd, more dogs were found dead, and yet again, their bodies were drained of blood. Now the police chief was at a loss for words, and he was scared for the townsfolk, so he called in a team of professional hunters to help track and kill this beast. Then on January 5th, 1953, a local woman was inside her house when all of a sudden she started to hear the sounds of a dog crying outside. And when she went outside to see what was going on, she saw what she described as a huge cat-like creature, and this creature attacked her, and the woman, scared out of her mind, started to scream her head off, and her husband came rushing outside, and thankfully, he was able to scare this creature away. Now after this attack, this unknown animal started to get very famous, and hunters started coming in droves in hopes of slaying this beast. Now nobody really knew what this creature was, but on January 13th, a local farmer trapped and killed a very large bobcat, and they hung it from a flagpole with a sign saying that this was the beast of Bladen Borough. Now since there were no more reported attacks, some believe that this bobcat was responsible for the killings. But many disagree with that statement, as they believe that whatever killed these animals was a lot bigger and a lot stronger than a bobcat, and also because bobcats don't drain dead bodies of all their blood, making many speculate that the real beast of Bladen Borough managed to escape, and it vanished back into the darkness of the swamps, never to be seen again. In 1953, a 23-year-old housewife named Hilda Walker and her friends were sitting on the porch one night trying to cool off, as it was a very hot day in Houston, Texas. While they were relaxing on the porch, Hilda saw a huge shadow across the lawn. At first she thought it was a magnified reflection of a moth caught in one of the nearby streetlights. Then this huge shadow bounced upward into a pecan tree, and this caught everybody's eye, and when they looked up, they saw a very strange being, and this being looked like a man, but it had bat-like wings, and it was surrounded in a very odd glowing haze. Then this creature flew up in the air and flew over the houses, making a very loud swishing noise. Now these people were really scared. They had never seen anything like this before, and they all agreed that whatever this was had to have been at least 6 feet tall. One of the eyewitnesses stated, "I can hardly believe it, but I saw it. We looked across the street and saw a flash of light rise from another tree and take off like a jet." Now that night, there were a lot of sightings of very odd lights in the sky, and this creature had come to be known as the Houston Horror or the Houston Batman, but there were no more actual face-to-face sightings of this creature. Well, at least not until a couple of years later. The next sighting of the Houston Horror happened at the Bel Air Theater by numerous employees. These eyewitnesses claimed to have seen a huge man-bat-like creature trying to hide on a rooftop, and over the years, more and more people have come forward swearing that they too had seen this monster, making the Houston Horror or the Houston Batman very famous in Texas. The Pug Wedgie is a very famous magical creature in Native American folklore, and these creatures are believed to be about 2 to 3 feet tall. They have enlarged noses, fingers, and ears. Their skin is described as being very smooth and gray, and sometimes they glow. Now throughout the years, there have been quite a few sightings of these beings, and one of the most famous of these encounters happened to a man named Bill Russo. One night Bill was walking his dog when he started to hear some very strange noises. At first, he thought that it was a child trying to speak. Then he noticed something very small walking under a streetlight, and Bill thought that it was a little kid in some sort of costume. But as Bill got closer, he realized that this was not a human. This was something else. And this tiny creature was actually trying to communicate with Bill, and it seemed like it was trying to tell him to come closer. Now Bill and his dog was frozen in fear. He just couldn't believe what he was looking at. Now Bill was really scared and he did not want to get any closer, and he ran away as fast as he could, as he knew that he had just come face to face with something that just shouldn't exist. And when he got home, he told his wife what he saw. Now, Bill lives in a location known as the Bridgewater Triangle, and this place is known for Pug Wedgie sightings as well as very odd phenomena. And Bill believed at that time that he saw a little Bigfoot. But after doing tons of research, he realized that he had encountered a Pug Wedgie. Now, because Bill is such a very well-respected and credible person, and also because so many others have come forward over the years within this region, makes a lot of people wonder, could these magical beings really exist? I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the urban legend where a young couple are parked, sitting in a car in the middle of nowhere, when all of a sudden they hear a noise outside, and the guy decides to be brave, so he goes outside to investigate. And of course, he never returns, and the girl is waiting in the car in total fear. Then the girl starts to hear scratching noises outside the car. And when the police arrive the next day, they find the terrified girl still waiting in the car for her boyfriend. And when she finally goes outside, she sees her boyfriend's dead body dangling from a tree. Now, of course, there are a lot of variations of this urban legend, but the original story comes from a place known as Proctor Valley, and it also involves Bigfoot. Now, the original testimony is very similar to some of the urban legends, except the boyfriend was never found, and the police found huge footprints outside of the car, as well as scratch marks on the side of the car as if the boyfriend was being dragged to his death. And if you ask me, this story is a lot more scarier than some of the other versions, and it's all true, according to old police reports. Now, after this event, the Proctor Valley Monster started to get very famous, and a lot of people within this region are, and have been for years, convinced that a mean Bigfoot lives here. But after a lot of searching, no hard evidence has ever been found, except for some pretty big cast of footprints, and a lot of eyewitness reports. One of the first reported sightings of a sea monster, or a lake monster, in the United States happened in 1817, when eyewitnesses reported seeing a huge serpent-like creature that had a turtle-like head and a body as wide as a barrel. Now, since so many people saw this creature, professionals in New England set out to go find and document this beast. They even came up with a name for it, as they were convinced that it was real. But after years of searching, they could never find it, so it was never classified as a new species. But then, in 1859, 42 years after the first sighting, a very similar looking creature attacked a British sailing vessel. And after this attack, the people were now convinced that this monster was real, and fishermen all throughout this region went to go hunt it down. But they were unsuccessful. Now, throughout the years, there have been a lot more sightings of this creature, and the last one was in 1997. But still to this very day, no hard evidence has ever been found. But that hasn't stopped people from looking for this elusive mystery monster. Now, not all monster legends involve an unknown animal. Some are based on truth, and they are just as terrifying. In the 1950s, in San Antonio, Texas, a woman was badly burned in a house fire, and she was horribly disfigured. Her fingers and toes burned off, making her hands and feet look like hooves. Now, because 2 of her children died in the fire, and all the drama she went through, this woman went completely insane, and the townsfolk were terrified of her, so they banished her from the town. So this poor woman ended up living under a bridge, and at times, she would just scare the crap out of the people who would pass by. Now, the people who came face to face with this woman did not know the full story, and they were convinced that she was some sort of unknown animal, and she became known as the Donkey Lady, and people will flock to this bridge in hopes of getting a glimpse of this woman. But over time, the sighting stopped, making some believe that she died, but her body was never officially found, making people wonder if she is still alive. Until next time, this is Paranormal Junkie. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned.